Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cardano Podcast. I'm Ryan Morrison, your host, and today I have for you a very interesting interview I did with Sebastien. He's the Co-VP of Engineering and Cardano Project Manager at Emurgo. Emurgo, if you don't know, is the entity behind the Yoroi wallet. So we had a very interesting conversation where we talked about his involvement at the beginning and how did he discover Cardano, how he got involved in the whole project and the reason behind what he was doing before, so more on a personal level. And then we also discussed what they're doing and what the plans are for one Yoroi, but also what else are they working on. So they're working on stablecoin, and they're also working on kind of on a dApp connector. So we talked about that in depth, and so you'll hear all that in the interview. But before we start, please remember that you can support this podcast, this Cardano podcast, by voting or giving us kudos on our Fund 4 Catalyst proposal. So you can just go to in Fund 4, just go for the campaign Catalyst Value Onboarding, and then just look for Cardano Podcast. So that way we'll be able to continue with this series of interviews with people that add value to the Cardano ecosystem, and also specifically also about the teams behind all these projects that are happening in Catalyst. So you get to see also the explanation of the team, not only read the proposal. And the other way to help also the support in this channel is to delegate your ADA to our stake pool. So you can look on ADA pools for the ticker Quant. It's called Quant Pool. So QUANT. So that's it. And then we'll start now with the conversation I had with Sebastien from Emurgo. Hi everyone, and as promised, I'm here with Sebastien. Hi Sebastien, and welcome to the Cardano Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for taking the time to discuss. We'll discuss in this interview many things related to Emurgo, to Yoroi, and other things that you guys are working on. For the ones that don't know, Sebastien is the Co-VP of Engineering and Cardano Project Manager at Emurgo.
Yep.
You grew up in Canada, if I understood that well.
Yeah. I was born in Manitoba and then grew up in West Coast in Victoria, just near Vancouver.
Cool. And you worked also as a software developer at Microsoft there.
Yeah, I did 3 internships, and then when I graduated, I went to go work there, and then eventually left to join Emurgo.
Perfect. And maybe we can discuss that transition. What was you were in Canada at Microsoft, and what was that tickle? What's something that you found about the blockchain, about and you got interested in that, and that's why you started looking into that. You came across to Emurgo.
Yeah, I can add some more information. So when I was working in the States, I was working in Bellevue, which is near Seattle. Mm-hmm. So I had left Canada at that point. And, I studied computer science and math in university. And so I wanted to do something related to natural language processing. That was my interest at the time. And so university, I spent some of my spare time studying this. And then my graduation research paper was on this topic, where I was doing an analysis of newspaper articles to figure out biases. And so I was really interested in this topic. And part of that was also because as a kind of for fun way to spend time, I was also studying Japanese as a language. So I was kind of interested in languages. I knew French, which is my first language, English. And then I wanted to kind of learn a third one and picked up Japanese. And so there's a whole history behind me and languages and natural language processing. And so when I joined Microsoft, I joined Bing, which is the search engine by Microsoft. And so I was working on kind of the engineering side, trying to implement and make faster the natural language processing models that the researchers were working on. And while all this was happening, I was interested in blockchain as a side interest. And so every now and then I would check up on blockchain, see how has the situation evolved over time. So I'll see there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of research to be done even today. And so every year the technology just keeps getting better. And every time I looked at blockchain, I was like, well, it's not quite there yet. There's some stuff you can do. You can own Bitcoin, you can send Bitcoin to people, but I was not super interested in just this kind of transaction. Obviously, it has a lot of uses, but for me, it didn't feel like super compelling for somebody who lives in North America. And so when Ethereum came out, I was like, oh man, this is pretty interesting. There's a lot of use cases that gets enabled by this smart contract functionality. And so I spent a lot of time kind of on the side looking into Ethereum and smart contracts in Ethereum and how it all works and the technical design of Ethereum. And I was not super happy with the technical design. Obviously, from a philosophical point of view, I thought it made a lot of sense. But the developer experience was kind of messy at the time. I've heard that now it's better, but these things take a lot of time to figure out. But a lot of it was inherent to the way things work. You're working with this weird EVM language, which has kind of a nonsensical structure. It's very error prone. And whenever you have an issue, you have to go down to the EVM bytecode, which works in ways that are extremely tricky. And, you have to really dig into it to figure out how not to shoot yourself in the foot. And so I was not super happy with that. I figure I'll see what happens and see what evolves. But in the meantime, let's check out what other projects exist. And so I was looking through, other crypto projects, and I found Cardano. And Cardano wanted to solve all the problems I saw with Ethereum, kind of take a next step. And that's why, in a sense, the marketing was third-gen cryptocurrencies to try and solve a lot of problems that exist with the second generation, which is Ethereum. And so I looked into it some more. And the thing that really fascinated me was the kind of research approach to it. For Ethereum is obviously an engineering project. Lots of engineering going on, but kind of weak on the research side. Vitalik, who's one of the founders of Ethereum, has his blog, which he has a lot of kind of in-depth articles explaining technical concepts, but it's not as much of an academic rigor as I would have liked. And because I had done a lot of reading of research papers from my background with NLP, I really resonated in that part with Cardano. And so that's kind of what got me interested in Cardano. And the more I got into it, the more I was like, I want to spend more time. There's so much going on this project, and I can't easily balance this with the work I was also doing at Microsoft. And since I knew Japanese, and Emurgo is a Japanese company, they were at the time trying to build up an engineering team, and they knew me from being involved in the community. And so from my background, both from a engineering point of view, somebody who did I wouldn't say I did research, but was somebody who's willing to dig into the research, and also the fact that I spoke Japanese kind of made me a good fit for Emurgo. And so that's when I decided to leave Microsoft and join Emurgo, and that's kind of the history.
Cool. Well, then you had to move to Japan.
Yeah. So I was in Tokyo for a while, then I moved to Kyoto to be kind of I wouldn't call it the countryside, but Tokyo is a huge city, and I wanted to kind of get away from that. And so I lived in Kyoto for a while, and then came back to Tokyo only fairly recently.
Cool, very interesting background. So I guess like maybe for now that you mentioned Emurgo, I know that a lot of the listeners of the podcast know the Cardano Foundation, IOHG as well. Perhaps a lot of them don't know much about Emurgo and what is the role of Emurgo in the Cardano ecosystem. I think who better than the Cardano project manager Emurgo to ask this question too. So what is the involvement of Emurgo in the Cardano project?
Yeah. So when Cardano was kind of conceived as a project, we wanted 3 entities. And so that's why there's 3 to start. So IOG, previously called IOHK, was in charge of kind of the core engineering of the protocol. The Cardano Foundation was kind of in charge of community management, legal side, regulation, lobbying, all this kind of stuff. But we needed a company that helps build the ecosystem around the core product. If IOG is the core product, who's in charge of building the ecosystem? Obviously, we can say, oh, we'll just let the community figure it out. But that's not a good way to bootstrap the ecosystem, right? You need somebody to be there from the start to help build the tooling and the experience and to help grow the ecosystem to the point where it can self-sustain itself. And so that's kind of the image that we had for Emurgo. Now, the thing about Cardano is, as you know, it's a kind of research first project. And so we've come a long way in the engineering, but at the start, a few years ago, we obviously didn't have Shell yet. We didn't have the smart contract testnets yet. So it's a very limited amount of stuff we do at Emurgo. And so part of the reason I was brought on board was because we wanted to figure out as a company, what can we do at the time? And at the time we looked at, what was available. And at the time there was no light wallet for Cardano. And IHK was kind of looking into light wallet support. And they came to us and said, would Emurgo like to work on a light wallet? I think it'll fit well with a growing ecosystem because they're looking for a project. And so that's how we ended up picking up Yoroi, which is the light wallet made by Emurgo. And it's available for both browsers and mobile devices. And that's been kind of our primary focus for the past while. But obviously, this is not the extent of our involvement in the ecosystem. We want to grow beyond just the wallet. And so we've recently been trying to focus on two main things. One is getting experience making smart contracts and deploying smart contracts. And the other is trying to grow Yoroi to be able to connect well with smart contracts. So obviously, Yoroi is a wallet, and so it handles, sending, receiving ADA, but it hasn't historically had a functionality for connecting with dApps or a real user experience for that. And so we need to add this functionality. And so for the smart contract side, because smart contracts are not yet available on Cardano, we wanted to get the experience kind of early. That way, as soon as smart contracts are ready on Cardano, we can start releasing stuff right away. And we thought the best way to do that was another blockchain called Ergo, which is a blockchain that also uses a UTXO style smart contract system, which is kind of similar to Cardano, which lets us test ideas and design patterns, and lets us build the experience and build a team in such a way that when Cardano comes out, we already have experience and products to kind of ship. I wouldn't say that's on day one, so it takes some time to pour stuff over, but we'll definitely a huge heads up. And at the same time, the ability to connect Yoroi to dApps is something that we can start working on now, because we can start connecting now that we've already built dApps for Ergo. We built a Oracle system and we built a stablecoin. Now we're able to take these protocols and connect them to Yoroi. And so we've been working on the Yoroi connector, which allows you to connect Ergo dApps to your Yoroi wallet. And we're hoping to have the developer preview release for that this week. And we'll have a public release sooner than later if no issues are found. And the benefit for this is because once we have this dApp connector, we don't need to wait for smart contracts on Cardano to release a dApp connector. We can release it, as soon as we have it ready. So as soon as we're done the Ergo functionality, we'll move on to work on the Cardano functionality for the dApp connector. And the Cardano dApp connector will not be able to do smart contracts quite yet, but it will be able to do stuff like transaction metadata, handling of multi-assets, handling delegating to stake pools and managing staking keys. And I think just these three use cases already provide enough value to the functionality, and the community in Cardano has grown to the point where there's a lot of people interested in this. So I think our goal at Emurgo is to be able to provide the tooling, say, here's the tooling. We have Yoroi, which is product we've already grown to over 100,000 users. We have the libraries. Emurgo wrote a JavaScript SDK through WebAssembly for browsers. So we have the wallet done for you. We have the SDK done for you. And now we'll also have the dApp connector done for you. And so we have this community of people excited about Cardano, wanting to do something about Cardano. And it's Emurgo, I think we're super close to be able to provide kind of the three core building blocks people need to take that and start building these amazing experiences.
Great. I think like all of the use cases that you mentioned are like very needed now that Cardano is growing more. Of course, with Catalyst also we can talk a bit about and that also encourages the building of new dApps as well, so they could benefit a lot from like the stuff like the connector that you were just mentioned. So for people that to understand this, would it be some kind of like MetaMask but for the Cardano ecosystem?
Yeah, it's similar in functionality in the sense that it runs as a browser extension. The main difference we have with MetaMask is that in our situation, we have two different extensions. So we have Yoroi as a standalone wallet, and then a dApp connector that you can download as a separate extension. We thought this made the most sense because one of the benefits we have with Yoroi is that it's kind of like a locked box. Nobody can get inside it. You know your wallet's safe. It's no external websites can access your wallet can't access external websites, and you're kind of safe in this sandbox environment. And by having a dApp connector, you're basically adding a hole to the sandbox, right? We're now selling your wallet can connect with websites and pass information both directions. And not everybody wants this, right? Definitely some people want to target access for certain websites. Like if you go on, Google, if ever Google supports smart contracts, you go on Google and say, okay, I'm okay with whitelisting Google and giving them specific access or something. But people don't want, every website to know the state of their wallets. And so we figured the best way to provide this user security is to have Yoroi by default be completely locked and nothing gets in, nothing gets out. And then if you want to opt into smart contracts, then you can download this extra extension. And all this extra extension does is communicate through a bridge. And you have, Yoroi, bridge, website, and everything communicates through the bridge as kind of the trusted connection point. So that's kind of the design, which is slightly different from MetaMask, where people have had a lot of concerns about MetaMask popping up. And if you look at the MetaMask code, they have like a hard-coded list of websites not to inject MetaMask code on, like anything that ends with .gov. And I think like this is not a great solution, right? No. We'd rather have things locked down by default. So that's the main difference.
Great. Yeah, great. Got it. A question that I saw a lot of people asking on Reddit when it comes to Yoroi is what does it mean that it's a light wallet compared to Daedalus?
Yeah, so Daedalus is what is often called a full node. So what a full node means is that you sync the full history of the Cardano blockchain. And I don't remember the size of the Cardano blockchain now, but I think it's a few hundred megabytes, right? Which is not much for a standard computer. It's not that big of a deal. But for a mobile device where storage may not be as accessible, it's not great. And then if you have a slower computer, an older computer, the speed of downloading the whole blockchain may not be fast enough for your needs. Like especially if you want to send somebody ADA, you don't want to wait to synchronize the blockchain in a few minutes to send the funds. You'd rather to send them right away. And so the design of a light wallet is instead of having the full node run on your computer, have the full node run on a different computer, and then your wallet just queries the state of the blockchain. So instead of having to store everything on your computer and have it be ready, you say, okay, I just need this thing and this thing and this thing, and tell me this little bit of information. And because of that, Yoroi runs very lightweight. You only need a few megabytes of storage to run it. But obviously, there is a trade-off with it in the sense that to get this information, you have to trust that Emurgo stores a copy of the Cardano blockchain. If you have a hardware wallet, then you're much safer because the entire point of hardware wallets is that even if the application gets compromised, you're still safe. And so if you don't like the trade-offs of a light wallet, it's just buy a hardware wallet and then you're safe no matter what happens. But there is, some trade-offs with this. But, people have a certain amount of trust in Emurgo, obviously, because we helped start the project. And, a lot of times when you look at user experience, it's not just the blockchain, but everything in general. There's a certain trade-off between usability and safety. And we want to offer the full spectrum. So we have Daedalus, which is obviously a very good wallet. It's a full wallet. Obviously, it had a rough start for people who've been around for a long time. But in the past year or two, I think it's really come a long way. It's very usable. And so people who want to use that, they have a very solid option. But we also want to have an option for people who prefer the usability and have stuff, accessible from their phone on the go or accessible from their browser without having to sync. And that's kind of the use case that Yoroi provides.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah, that's clear. A lot of the questions that I've seen also on social media about Emurgo is also what you guys are looking into the future. What's the roadmap? I don't think it makes much sense to talk about the next 5 or 3 years. It's in this industry. It's kind of nonsense to talk about so far away because things change so quickly. But maybe it's just like more than maybe you can tell us a bit of what is your focus for the coming quarters, and what do you guys want to get done. Maybe you already mentioned a few of those things, like the connector or the stable coin, but maybe there's also other things that you would like to share.
Yeah, so focusing on dApps is kind of our number one functionality right now. So obviously, since we've launched the Oracle and the stablecoin, we're now looking into starting a third project. So we're internally looking into a third project. We haven't announced anything yet, but we are working on this. And then on the connector side, as I mentioned, we're finishing up Ergo support, and then we'll have Cardano support. And I'm sure based off that, people will have suggestions on the user experience, and we'll make a lot of tweaks to that. You know, the first version of product is never the last version of a product. And so that'll definitely take time. And we're also looking a lot into Catalyst. So we've already made a Catalyst proposal already as a company at Emurgo. So back during Fund 2, the second round of Catalyst, we made a proposal for message sending specification for Catalyst, and we got that passed, and we've been working on implementing that. And we're very much interested in making more treasury proposals in the future. There's two kinds of treasury proposals that we're kind of looking at. One of them is obviously the Cardano 2025 proposal, which you might have heard about. Charles has talked about it in the past, where we want to have a Cardano 2025 roadmap. For the first version of Cardano, we had a 5-year roadmap. Now he wants to have a second 5-year roadmap. And in the second 5-year roadmap, it's not just, you know, IOG, CF, and Emurgo. We're trying to get as many companies and people involved as possible. And so we're definitely talking with IOG about, you know, this roadmap and what we can do within the scope of this roadmap. And we'll have more announcements on that in the future. But we're also looking into working on treasury proposals with people in the community or other companies. So oftentimes people want to do something on Cardano. They want to build something on Cardano, but they lack two things. One, they lack the money, but also they maybe lack some knowledge. And we think at Emurgo, we're well positioned to give them knowledge, because a lot of times the tools they need, we built them. And so we're looking for companies who want to do joint treasury proposals, where the company would do the treasury proposals, they build the core product, and then we help advise. So we've already talked with a few different companies. I think one of them may already have made their proposal. I don't remember. And we're kind of looking into this. But obviously, this is something a bit tricky, because Catalyst, as you may know, is just getting started. So the process is not super ironed out. And also, the amount of money that's available for Catalyst, although it grows every round, we purposely started Catalyst small. That way, if there's any issue that gets found, there's only a small amount of money at stake, so it's not a big deal. And every fund in Catalyst keeps growing and growing. So I think Fund 4 is the 1 million round total.
That's right.
Or maybe it was that, yeah. And so, and that will keep increasing. And so as the fund increases, it becomes more possible to have companies make serious proposals. And as that happens, and we have a clear path to have everybody vote and everybody get involved, then I think it'll make a lot of sense for companies to reach out to Emurgo and for us to make joint proposals together. Because I think this helps not only the Cardano ecosystem from a product point of view, but also helps grow the Cardano ecosystem to be more decentralized. Because obviously Emurgo could make proposals for us to build something, and that's great, because obviously the community gets something. That's something we'll keep looking into. But it's even better is if we can make a proposal that brings somebody new into the ecosystem, and we help grow their product and their idea, and then hopefully they become a kind of stable component of the Cardano ecosystem. And that's the ultimate goal, right? We don't want to just be Emurgo. We want to help get people involved and build projects together.
Perfect. Yeah, makes sense. It's an interesting model as well, also for companies. They get to take advantage of all the knowledge that you guys have also and have built during these years. Now that we were talking about knowledge, and now we're about to in the last part of the interview, talking about knowledge, where can people learn more about it? I know that there's a lot of questions on where should I start, what's the best thing, and probably it's two different routes. So one is more the technical, and the other ones that are not technical. Maybe we can talk about on the technical side of things. What do you think it makes sense for developers that are listening to this podcast that maybe are familiar already with Solidity, maybe not even with Solidity? Where would you think would be the best way to begin for yourself?
Yeah, I think if you want to learn kind of the smart contract side of Cardano, there are definitely resources out there. But the thing about Cardano is it's quickly evolving. We have so many people involved in the Cardano project, and so much is happening that the documentation often changes. And so if you want to look into smart contracts, there may be some interesting stuff in the existing test nets we have, in the existing playgrounds we have, in the existing documentation we have. There's a lot of material out there. But you're kind of entering into a difficult mode because things change as we improve stuff, preparation for the release. What I think a lot of people have more success doing is going the Catalyst route. So we've seen a lot of people start companies through Catalyst and start working on building an idea, and then they submit their idea on the Catalyst Discord group or post it in Telegram. They get feedback on their idea, and they refine what would be accepted by the community, the Cardano community, as a proposal. And if you ask questions in the developer Telegram or in the developer subreddit or in the Catalyst Discord group, there's a lot of kind of technical people there that can answer your questions to help iron out the details. And I think this has shown to be a much more successful route for people who want to get involved right away. Obviously, if you're looking more into the long term and you want to build smart contracts on Cardano, you want to learn these steps ahead of time, then definitely I suggest looking into UTXO-based smart contracts. And although Plutus is still evolving as we make the final touches, there's others UTXO-based smart contract programming languages out there. Like, for example, Ergo script for Ergo, Bitcoin, their scripting language is also UTXO-based, and there's a few other blockchains that use this. And so you can look into this and get an idea of logically how it makes sense, because it's very different from Ethereum. And so you have to kind of change the way your mind works to get that knowledge. And so that might be a good thing to look into. If you're not a technical person and you want to learn more about Cardano, it's difficult because of how much is going on. And Charles does probably the best job of summarizing the vision of the project, the upcoming projects that the companies are working on. And so subscribing to Charles on YouTube and following his AMAs, I think right now is the fastest way to keep really up to date, especially for people who are kind of more the trader type, who want, to get a summary of overview what's going on. I think Charles and his AMAs is probably the best thing we have to get the kind of most up to date. But we have a very large community. If you go on basically any social platform, there's a Cardano community there, and there's a lot of nice people that are more than happy to answer questions. So that's my other suggestion.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So that if you just want to learn, just go through yourself and there in the community and just start asking questions. That's the best way to do it. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I think has been a very insightful interview, and I'd like to thank you very much, Sebastien, for your time. We learned a lot about what you guys are doing at Emurgo and what are the plans also for the next months and quarters.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. And it would be great also in the future to have a follow-up where once maybe after Alonso's hard fork, or maybe in the second semester of the year as well, when things are already running from a smart contracts perspective. And we have also some more dApps developed also in the future. Maybe also would be interesting to have a follow-up conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I love talking to the community. We have a lot of stuff we're doing at Emurgo, and sometimes some of it is technical or, not as clear to the community about how it's going to be rolled out. And so part of my job is to make sure we clear that and people have a good sense of what we're working on a company and where we're going. So I love coming on these podcasts and getting a conversation started.
Great. Yeah, also really enjoyed it. Well, and thank you everyone also that is listening to the podcast. We'll be soon with more interviews, also interviewing the teams behind the different proposals on Project Catalyst, so you can hear what they have to say as well about the specific projects. And that's it. Thank you, Sebastien, and thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Bye.